Rek'Sai as well as Nidalee. You've obviously got the likes of Lulu still possible if they wanted to go that route.
No, not anymore.
Until now. Yeah.
There you go. So that one's taken off the board. ROCCAT have one more ban to their names. And what is really first pickable in this instance for MeetYourMakers? There's so many options. Sejuani is not one of them, however.
So with Sejuani off the table, I think the safe pick would be the jungle route. Safe pick would get something secure. You've got the pick of the litter as far as mid lane champions are concerned. And of course, forgetting about the tree. So safe and secure. But, you know, a ton of junglers still available. A ton of mid laners still available. This is interesting because a player like Nukeduck has had Z banned a bajillion times throughout the course of the split. 13 of their 18 games, that's been taken off the table. Now, the reason I'm going to stick with Zed and, you know, some of the others, Nukeduck can play any assassin he wants to in this middle lane. Wait for it to play out, but he needs to carry with it. Nukeduck was a super hype mid laner coming into the split, and he's just not had that level of impact. He's not had those standout games that we've seen from a Power of Evil, that we've seen from a Febiven. And, you know, it's a little late in the split, but you can always try pick it up in your very last game.
Yeah, we'll have to see what he does. For now, they're not going to decide as they go ahead and take the Jinx. As you mentioned, might be the possibility. Jankos also picks up Nidalee. So they're going to hope to try and snowball and get themselves ahead. What do MeetYourMakers answer with? Now I've seen a bit of jungle Gragas. May come in. Still some time on the clock, though. Yeah,
we've actually been talking to a lot of the players regarding Gragas versus Sejuani, and there's a couple of split opinions between the Challenger teams and the LCS teams about how effective that Gragas can be. And you cannot argue the tankiness, the disengage that it offers, especially when comboed with that Cinder Hulk. There's a lot of natural synergy. I quite like the idea of Gragas plus Maokai because you've just got such a beefy front line. I don't, however, like the idea of Corki. If ROCCAT decide to lock in some tanks, knowing the fact that you're coming up against a Nidalee means that likelihood is a little more reduced. But we'll have to see what sort of frontline ROCCAT can put together to contest MeetYourMakers.
We will indeed. ROCCAT so far, not a lot of tankiness on them, but they've got a top and several other things to decide for. Janna might be the support choice for Vander. Let's see if they do decide to take it. The Janna Jinx lane. A little light on their feet. Of course, there have been a number of supports banned out. Lulu, obviously a flex pick, but definitely would help in that type of composition. Yeah, and you know, Vander was one of my favorite supports last year on a multitude of champions, but has sort of fallen from grace. He's not really had the same level of playmaking ability that we've seen from other supports. And yes, of course, Vander is playing with Woolite now. He was playing with Saliva last year. This Janna, if it gets locked in, it'll be the third time that we've seen it played. And it's a it's a very, very disengaged support, obviously. Going to buy some safety for Jinx, but when you've got Nidalee that wants to jump in, you've got Janna, Irelia that wants to jump in as well. I'm not sure if ROCCAT can stand the test of a Gragas Maokai frontline. If they don't get ahead early, they are simply not going to be able to burn through the tree and the Fat Man quickly enough. And yes, of course, Janna will buy some time with Monsoon, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough. It will have to be seen. Let's see what MeetYourMakers want to finalize their comp with. Noxiak, he really has liked this Leona. MeetYourMakers as a team has really liked this Leona, but measure of success they've had has definitely not been up there until recently. We'll see if they decide to take it this time around. The Ahri also being considered for Kori.
We'll see. A couple of seconds left before they lock in. Just before they do, I think on the side of MYM, they've got a fairly standard comp. You've got beefy frontline, AP, you've got engage from your support, you've got engage from your top lane. The only thing that I would have preferred would have been a slightly different AD carry, but knowing that they're not coming up against mega tanks, Corki actually does relatively well, and he's going to have a lot of protection from so many players.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do want to highlight is just how much pressure there's going to be on Overpow. His Irelia has probably been his most impressive champion. Only played it once, I believe, this split. And the reason I said it's impressive when he played it at IM Cologne leading up to the LCS, that was where he really shined. Got his hands on a couple of tanks here and there and has not had that same level of impact. So we'll need to see whether or not Overpow can do well in the early game if they can get those head-to-head lanes against Jwaow, because of course Leona, not particularly great in lane swaps.
No, definitely not. ROCCAT, considering if they want to go the Katarina route again, this time they swap it over to LeBlanc. Nukeduck's got his pick for the last, and he does take LeBlanc. So they have a number of champions that want to dive in, a number of champions that want to sit back.
Yeah, definitely the case. But for ROCCAT, the idea being LeBlanc, Nidalee, Irelia, finding targets, get the assassination with Jinx, get excited, and if anything goes awry, Janna's there to disengage. LeBlanc is Nukeduck's most played champion. 5 games, this will be his 6th. He's lost 4 of them. And when you've got everything available to you, obviously this has been the priority for Nukeduck, but he's simply not been able to really impact the game quite as effectively. What I'd like to see from ROCCAT, strong laning phase, I feel like they can do very well, especially early on. We've seen LeBlanc do very, very well in the opening minutes. But what ROCCAT need to make sure they do is impact those side lanes. Make sure that Woolite can get ahead. Make sure that Overpow can start to snowball, get to that Trinity Force as quickly as possible, and then use their sort of mid-game power spike from every champion except Jinx to overpower the slightly under-farmed tanks. Once Maokai and Gragas get up there, I'm not sure there's enough frontline or disruption from the ROCCAT squad to survive. So the longer this goes, the more I think MeetYourMakers have a chance.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that one shakes out. Now, with those picks and bans locked in, you guys know what to do. Go ahead and tweet us at LL Esports with the hashtag MYM win or ROC win. Let us know who you think has the edge in this one as we get ready to fire up this game number 4. Will it be MYM? Will it be Team ROCCAT? The crowd's hyped either way, guys. Let's get on to the Rift.
And something that this matchup shares is a fight to stay in the LCS. MYM fighting to avoid auto-relegation. ROCCAT fighting to avoid the promotion tournament. Who wants their LCS lives more? I guess we're about to find out.
I think that's a fair bet. MeetYourMakers, so far, looks like we're going to be in for standard lanes unless we see any shenanigans and swap rounds. There have been a couple of close shaves in the beginning of the last couple of games. See if that trend continues today. Line of scrimmage, though, to start things off.
That must be the only NFL term the entire league world understands.
Yep.
If you don't watch NFL...
But you know what that is.
Oh, I know what the line of scrimmage is because I've been taught it watching LCS.
The more you know.
There we go. So it does look like it's going to be those standard lanes. The question is, how well can Woolite and Vander do for the opening few levels? Will they be able to get some control against MrRalleZ and Noxiak? Noxiak is a de facto aggressive player. He likes to go in, he likes to do it often, and he likes to roam. So if ROCCAT do not arrest control in the lane, expect Noxiak to go for those level 2, level 3 all-ins. And if MrRalleZ is pushing, then expect Noxiak to roam. So our eyes should definitely be on how his movements interact maybe with Horo, and how they interact the other lanes.
Right, and this is also not going to be really any detriment to RALEZ in that case because he's on a very, very safe AD carry to try and play it out in any situation. As long as he saves his Valk and doesn't spend it carelessly, he should be perfectly fine. Unless ROCCAT commit maybe 3 or 4 members onto him repeatedly.
Yeah, definitely the case. And after all of the hubbub about the lane swaps, it's actually ROCCAT that initiate this one. We didn't see any deep vision. Just a straight-up call. MrRalleZ and Noxiak on the Krugs. And you can see that Woolite and Vander up top. So it's going to buy Woolite and Vander a little bit of time. Remember, they lost their 2v2 yesterday. And I think against the Corki Leona, that's a difficult lane, especially knowing how proficient Noxiak is on Leona. But we do need to see how well Overpow does. At what point can he get that Trinity Force? And when can he start becoming impactful?
Yeah, there's always a ticking timer when you've got an Irelia in the game. Jwaow, he hit his level 2. He's going to be going up to the top to deal with Vander and Woolite. Everything else normal for the time being.
Yeah, I want to comment on that ticking timer. You're 100% right. Whenever there's an Irelia, there's the short fuse that at some point Irelia is going to explode. But whenever there's a Maokai, there's a longer fuse. You look at SKA's game just previously, Freddy on that Maokai was initiating over and over and over. All right, Noxiak is going to find Nukeduck, but no support from anybody else.
180-degree turnaround, though, as soon as he sees Noxiak. He has been giving Kori a little bit of a hard time, but he is getting as good as he's giving. Start this one off. Jankos and Overpow still running together as they look at this top side of the map. What are they going to do while Horo and Jwaow focus on the red buff down bottom?
So hand-holding at the moment. Both of the respective top laners were sticking with the junglers for a while, getting some early levels and as much CS as possible. The thing is, ROCCAT were more decisive in this push. They shoved the wave in top earlier and quicker, and they're going to most likely take this tower. We saw how many minions there were not being cleared out, especially with their next conga line pouring in. MeetYourMakers opting to secure the dragon, while MrRalleZ is pushing the bottom tower. So if Overpow opts to teleport, maybe he can save it. We'll see what they decide. But ROCCAT with the early tower.
Yeah, fast push for them, so they should be able to swap down bot if they can get this one in time. There it goes. Get excited for Woolite, but meanwhile, Jwaow, Horo are trading the dragon. They'll be able to secure that one up. Takes a bite out of their health bars, but they do get it. And meanwhile, on the bottom, there's a fairly big wave that RalleZ is pushing in on this turret.
So not going to go down this wave, but if MrRalleZ has got... Oh, there's the next wave just poured in behind it.
Good timing.
Going to be able to try secure the line. So global advantage to ROCCAT. They're not letting up. Nobody has backed from the bottom lane yet. As you can see, Noxiak and Jwaow trying to defend this inner turret. I think this is fairly smart from ROCCAT. Again, accelerate the laning phase. Get yourself away from that sort of slightly weaker head-to-head phase. If you can get early global advantage, quicker Trinity Force, maybe quicker Shiv plus Eye Edge for Woolite. And that can allow you to force those objectives. Especially if outer towers are down, it allows ROCCAT to then be aggressive in the jungle and try to find those rotational-based kills and objectives.
Right, but this does slow down Overpow a little bit. He's not really been able to do much other than build a Ruby Crystal, so they're trading that potential advantage for getting some early objectives and getting themselves out of a dangerous laning phase. So I feel like that's worth, as long as they haven't been punished too much for it. Yes, they've given up a dragon, they've nearly given up a tower, but it just seems like something that they're happy to take. But Nukeduck, he could be in some trouble, has to burn his flash as he sees Horo and Noxiak running him down.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit of silly from Nukeduck to distortion forward. Nobody from MYM had been in sight for a while, and the wave was pushed past the river, and he opts to W aggressively. Does get punished and loses Summoner Spell. So we'll see how this impacts the CS, knowing that Kori's got a little bit of safety. Remember the first few minutes, we actually caught glimpses of that lane. Nukeduck had actually bullied Kori away a touch. So that's going to buy Kori some breathing room. Fairly low CS, thanks to that lane swap and the focus on towers and dragons. But you've got to decide, will MYM continue to play the dragon focus game, or will they be caught out? And thanks to the back timing from MrRalleZ, it's actually, again, ROCCAT with a very smart movement. They're going to get a lot of damage onto this bottom tower. And if anyone sticks around, they're at risk of going down.
RalleZ will spot that ward. Horo able to clear that one away in time. Noxiak's coming in, so 3v3 here if they want to take it. Still, they're behind the tower line right now. Still pretty dangerous. Ooh, a lot of damage on ROCCAT as they try to move away from that one. Meanwhile, Woolite still pushing away and pecking away at that tower, but it didn't quite get enough damage on it, not nearly to go down. So MYM have defended here.
A third of the hit points dropped away. ROCCAT, I think, maybe a little greedy. They were looking for the kills. They didn't commit to damage on the tower. Just trying to feel it out, see what they could make of the play. And at the end of the day, ROCCAT with the tower advantage. Noxiak, I think he's caught Woolite. Yes, he does.
Oh, yeah. Flame Choppers were on, though. Woolite is still very, very low. And he has to back out, but he takes a zap after the fact. So Noxiak's perfectly happy with that trade right now. They're going to have to go back to base on ROCCAT's side.
Yeah, so no summoner spells blown from the side of Woolite, and he's actually backing. Doesn't have a whole lot of gold since he picked up that pickaxe earlier on. Grabs himself the Avarice Blade. So going to try farm himself again to that Eye Edge and Shiv. Going to sit in that 2v2, but Woolite's going to be very careful. Noxiak's landed his first Zenith Blade, and it was Woolite getting caught that cost ROCCAT yesterday. It was that final mistake that allowed the Copenhagen Wolves to win the game. So we'll see whether or not that plays on Woolite's positioning, as all of the lanes have just defaulted. Overpow against Jwaow on the top. Jwaow with not a lot of vision in the river. Jankos decides to go pay him a visit. Could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yes, he could. Overpow. Blade Surgeon in, just trying to get himself farmed up and get relevant. Meanwhile, Kori Horo should be taking down that blue buff handily. ROCCAT still want to try and take towers where they can, but they've stopped getting over-aggressive on this after the one. And Woolite has been pushed back a little bit thanks to RalleZ and Noxiak.
So I initially liked what ROCCAT were doing. The sort of 4v0 push top, secure the tower. They tried to do a similar thing bottom, punish the back timing of MrRalleZ. But since that push somewhat stalled out, ROCCAT are now falling behind CS in the top and AD carry. It's not a large amount, but it is a little bit noticeable. And we need to see how ROCCAT decide to play this one out. Their initial strategy of accelerating that laning phase and trying to get control of the map yielded small victories, but it's not enough to be dominant. And despite having the objective of the tower, they're only 400 gold ahead. Again, thanks to the farming that MYM have put into play.
So MYM just trying to play the standard game better if they can and force back Woolite and Vander. Noxiak knocked up en route. MrRalleZ is still launching rockets.
Yeah, high five to Vander there. Started channeling that Howling Gale as Noxiak moved forward and instantly interrupted the Zenith Blade. So I really like that pick. And I also want to touch on itemization quickly. Kori, defensive starts, got Negatron mid versus the needlessly large rod. So that's going to make... Again, it just signals how that lane matchup is playing. Yes, Kori's not losing out on CS, but he's feeling the pinch. He's feeling the poke and the pressure of Nukeduck's LeBlanc damage.
Let's go ahead and check in on what's going on in the mid lane right now. Kori, Nukeduck, blue buffs between them. It has been a little less aggressive since Nukeduck nearly bought it earlier. So he's been playing a bit more reserve, sitting on the needlessly large rod to, as you mentioned, the defensive Negatron cloak from Kori. Horo now going to walk into a ward as he moves his way up, pinged out immediately. Fair amount of vision here invested by ROCCAT in that river. 4 seconds on the dragon. Nobody's really eyeballing it just yet.
And remember, of course, ROCCAT were unable to get anything on that previous dragon. It was a 4-minute Drake because ROCCAT stuck to the tower. So with MeetYourMakers knowing the timer and knowing they've got somewhat of an advantage in the bottom lane, Woolite and Vander being bullied back, small level advantage as well. Once Noxiak gets access to that solar flare, you can see Horo is sniffing around as well. So the first big team fight could be around the second dragon. Everybody's here. Overpow's moved down, didn't use the teleport. Jwaow is walking through the river as well, but it's ROCCAT that have got superior vision control.
And they're the one that's going to proc the dragon. Horo throws in the barrel. It's a Christmas present for the Drake, and ROCCAT look to try to secure this one up. They have the Crab Shrine, they've got the speed boost that comes with it. Kori's still a little bit away. They might have to give this one up unless they want to try for a steal. In comes another barrel. In comes the big barrel, but it's secured by Jankos anyway. And it is 1-1 in Dragons.
So I think very smart play from ROCCAT. They had a tighter group of 5. Everybody from ROCCAT was in the river. And if you looked at the minimap, Jwaow was coming from the side, Kori had to come from the top. Also, very important to note, the timing benefited ROCCAT because Noxiak had not hit level 6 yet. So the solar flare for engage and to hold people in place to allow Gragas and Maokai to disrupt simply wasn't there. So again, smart play from ROCCAT. It's not absolute control, but MYM are dancing to ROCCAT's beat.
For this time in the game, that's absolutely true. So it's only 11.5 minutes in, plenty of time for things to happen. ROCCAT, they have a slight gold lead, and now they've evened up the Dragon score. We'll see what happens continuing. Up in the top, Overpow, he went ahead and was able to pick up his sheen after all of that. He's getting closer to that Trinity Force. We'll keep an eye on that ticking timer for a while. Jwaow and Horo coming up to meet him very slowly. Jankos roving around, trying to throw some traps down to make sure he keeps tabs on the movements of MeetYourMakers.
Yeah, and ROCCAT have been unable to... Actually, ROCCAT haven't tried to make aggressive plays on champions. They've made their intentions very clear. It's towers as primary. They had timer on that dragon, and they made sure they got it. They invested 5 or 6 wards in the river, which allowed them to then obviously secure their first dragon of the game. And I think this is smart. You know, ROCCAT, they're farming their way up. They want to get those item spikes, and then they want to pick fights. The only thing is, they've got to be a little careful, because you don't want Horo and Jwaow to become so tanky. Woolite, he's stunned.
Yeah, there's the solar flare. There's the Cena play. Woolite is taken way low right now. Noxiak knocked into him, but he's going to have to bail away. That's going to be first blood. It goes to Overpow after he teleports in, and Jwow's was canceled.
If anything, that shows you just how prepared ROCCAT were for the Noxiak engage. Overpow began teleporting so quickly. The decision to help out the bottom lane was very, very smart, and it results in Overpow getting that first kill. Despite what was, for all intents and purposes, a perfect engage from Noxiak, Noxiak and MYM didn't have that same level of instant support from the rest of the team.
Not enough backup, and now there's a teleport gone for Jwaow as well. He got nothing out of that. Overpow certainly got a lot out of it. Goes back, gets his Phage. Looking pretty good right now as he moves up and just goes back to defend his tower and farm a little bit more. On the side of MeetYourMakers, Gotta be careful, otherwise this one could start running away from them. They will be in dangerous territory, having to duke it out. Actually, no, if they lose this one, they're just totally out.
Correct. If MeetYourMakers lose this game, they will place 10th, and that means they will get replaced by the #1 challenger team. Everybody's expecting that to be Origin at this point. They only dropped 1 of their regular season games, but Origin still need to win playoffs. So,
still a ways to go. And in this game, there's still a ways to go, but still, MYM on the back foot for the time being. ROCCAT, they're showing that they want to end on a high note.
We do see in the middle lane there, Woolite actually swapping away from the MrRalleZ Noxiak lane. He's down 20 odd CS, and again, still feeling the pressure. The first roam from a mid laner is, of course, Kori. He's going to try help out in this top lane, and Jwaow has caught Overpow.
Overpow will flash his way out of danger. Still, successful move for Jwaow as he's gotten that summoner forced. Nukeduck in the bottom, just clearing a few more minions out. Kori with the ward wars in the river. Go back to grab his blue on top of it and to defend his tower. So MeetYourMakers covering their bases quite well right now. See if they can keep this one up and get back into it.
Yeah, we do have to touch on Jankos' build as well. He's a little bit ahead of Horo, of course. More CS, got the assist on the board, but he's also got that Catalyst, the Protector, as a second item. And we've been seeing these sort of tier second as a standard, if I can use that term. So we'll see where Jankos goes with this. Obviously expecting the Rod of Ages and signaling a late game power spike. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that because, again, I am very scared of, you know, Jwaow and Horo as they grow. Yes, you're always going to have LeBlanc, who's great late. You're going to have Jinx, who's probably even better. We'll touch on that in a second. Horo has found Jankos.
Yes, and he finds the explosive cask. Jankos on the run. Solar Flare going to land on him, and Horo secures that one up. Jwaow wasn't even really needed for that.
It's a little unfortunate for Jankos, but an easy kill from MeetYourMakers. That's their first of the game. MrRalleZ forced to defend in the mid lane, but you notice Nukeduck's come up as well, and we've got another top lane battle.
Yes, we do. But Jwaow is the one with the minions at his back, and thanks to their help and just how big he's getting right now, Overpow was forced back under turret.
So yeah, to go back to that point, going to be interesting to see how well Vander can throw those monsoons out. Because, of course, the only real threat for Woolite is if he gets caught out by a Solar Flare, by Kori, or a Maokai, right? You need to see that assassin. Kori has to blow Woolite up, and if he does, then the rest of MYM can use those beefy tanks to sort of out-damage and out-sustain the Irelia, the Nidalee, just by being more beefy. We'll see how that works out. But you do see Trinity Force picked up for Overpow, so I'm expecting to see them play a little more aggressively.
I do expect that indeed. Take a look. Some members of Giants watching this game means quite a lot for their LCS future. I'd imagine they're rooting for ROCCAT in this case.
Really?
Yeah.
I think so too, Pyra. The interesting thing about that is, of course, even if Giants MYM do place none, they still have to re-qualify through the promotion tournament. It's not a guarantee, it's difficult, but it is one that they'd rather prefer. Dragon number 3 has spawned. ROCCAT are once again grouped. Look at Kori on the side. Kori is looking to assassinate a Squishy, and he set his sights on Jankos.
Yes, he has, and he might have gotten him. Yep, he does. Now, can he make his escape? Oh, that is a good Solar Flare down. Nukeduck moving in, trying to get more. It's going to be a double kill going over to Kori, and Woolite just back to farm as they have MYM moving on this one. In comes the rocket. Will it do enough? No, it's intercepted by the Fat Man. And Horo smites down Dragon 2 for MeetYourMakers.
Yeah, not going to steal that one away like North America, but a very, very good flank. Kori reading the situation just perfectly. Look at your minimap. ROCCAT was so focused on Dragon and the impending threat of the Gragas, Leona, Maokai that they peeled away and ran straight into Kori's waiting arms. He picked up Jankos instantly, and as ROCCAT committed to try and blow Kori up, who was on low health, Kori actually just got that second kill. So very well played. As long as Kori can keep flanking like that and taking out the Jankos, the Woolite, even the Nukeduck in certain circumstances, that is how MeetYourMakers can win these team fights. They want the threat of Jwaow, Horo, and Noxiak to buy space for Kori to pick and choose exactly who he wants to blow up.
They're certainly able to do it there. Kori coming up with a big play and a double for himself. Teleport now by Jwaow onto this tower. It's going to be enough to force ROCCAT away. So they successfully defend that one there. Meanwhile, Kori's on the bottom. That's going to prompt ROCCAT to respond to it as well.
Yeah, and something we've also got to highlight. Not only did MYM get the teamfight victory, they got the middle tower, and they got the dragon. So MYM was slightly down in gold, and they've now swung to about a 2,000 gold lead. So very, very smart play. This is the number 10 team in Europe. Yeah, it is currently number 10.
No, they're playing like they're better than it right now. We said at the very beginning, with Noxiak coming into this team, it has just transformed. The synergy that they've developed now, it's just been unreal in the last several weeks.
Yeah, I'm trying to quote Noxiak. I think it was last week he actually said he wants to save MeetYourMakers. And he seems to be hell-bent on that. The thing that we also have to ask, right? Can Noxiak be as impactful on non-Leona champions? Because much like Bunny Fufu or even Sheep from a few years ago from North America as examples, they were sort of Thresh mains. If they didn't play Thresh, they didn't have that massive impact in the game.
Yeah, it is kind of a question, and I feel like regardless of what does happen in this match, teams going against them in the future are going to be fairly eager to test that out. All it takes is a ban.
That's it, one ban. In theory. And of course, it does allow Kori or Jwaow to get one of their comfort picks. And they seem to be doing very well. 20 minutes on the clock. As we said, that front line of MYM is just going to get beefier and beefier. Working towards that Randuin's Omen for Jwaow. A lot of HP stacked up for Horo at the moment. He's also sitting on that Catalyst. And Jankos still sitting in Catalyst. Has yet to upgrade, yet to pick up anything further. 1,360 gold. Getting closer to enough. And Pyra, this tower's low. Overpow has no backup. MYM, do they want the dive or do they want the tower? It looks like the dive.
I think they want the dive, but they do get a flash or a solar flare. They'll get the tower afterwards. So they get something as they go hunting. And down it goes. 3 towers to 1 is the score. MeetYourMakers have now melted all the outers.
So we're going to find ourselves in the situation where MeetYourMakers with the lead and the limited damage sources. On the condition MeetYourMakers are grouped effectively and have the right vision, they should be able to win team fights. The only time MYM will get taken out is when ROCCAT can do to MYM what MYM did to ROCCAT at the Dragon. ROCCAT will need to look for a flank with Jankos, with Nukeduck, look for an assassination with the Super Mega Death Rocket. And if Kori or MrRalleZ go down at all, at any point, it's a very, very scary situation for MYM because Gragas and Maokai are not the best at cleaning up. They're not the janitors in this scenario. So keep a close eye on those two carries.
Yeah, ROCCAT,
and the vision.
ROCCAT are definitely waiting for a chance to really break out here, and they can snowball off of kills. A lot of their champions can. Overpow can, Jankos can, Nukeduck can, Woolite can. Problem is they haven't got them. Between those 4 champions, only been 1. Between the whole team.
And again, you've got these sort of very strong champions, Irelia, Nidalee, and LeBlanc. And with the lane swap strategy that ROCCAT employed, they focused the towers. Then they went to those standard lanes with towers sort of down and low, and it stalled out the laning phase. So even though ROCCAT attempted to accelerate it, even though ROCCAT tried to get those towers down and create opportunities to move around the map, it actually didn't work in their favor. It didn't allow them because of the fact that bottom outer turret is still standing. Remember, ROCCAT were there, what, 6 minutes on the clock? 7 minutes on the clock?
And they didn't get it.
Correct. And because of that sort of small misstep, all of that investment has somewhat played into MYM's favor. MYM gave up the first dragon. They didn't pick a fight around it because they knew they couldn't. And intelligently picked the fight around the 3rd spawning dragon, which MeetYourMakers won and got the objective as well.
And importantly for MeetYourMakers, they've been playing the game in the safest way possible, which is just don't face check anything, don't die, and you'll be okay. In theory, that's how pretty much most games should work. But against this squad that can just really get rolling if they're able to get a couple of key picks, MYM have not allowed them that. They've only played where they can be safely. 30 seconds now on this dragon. They look to set up some vision control. MeetYourMakers, as ROCCAT have backed off of the pit.
And this is the first time that MYM have had better vision and better control. ROCCAT, for the 2 previous times, had invested a lot more wards, a lot more vision, and had relied on the early damage advantage of their composition. But now they're respecting the engage power of a double Righteous Glory, Maokai plus Leona. You know, all of that lockdown is terrifying. And again, look at Kori. Every time MYM group up as a death ball, it's the 4-man team with the exception of Kori. He wants to be on the sidelines. Because if ROCCAT have to deal with 2 threats, it gives the opportunity for Kori to find somebody and pop him.
Like he's trying?
He's definitely trying.
He's revealed though.
And it also buys all of that space. You know, it's these zones of threat. Just the fact that Kori was sitting in the bush, it was so scary to ROCCAT. They arrived late and they didn't get that third train.
But MeetYourMakers were the ones that do. Jankos slowed up by the solar flare. He hops the wall to safety. So MeetYourMakers don't get anything there, but they do chase ROCCAT away. Yeah, and look at that flash from Woolite blown. So by the time the solar flare and righteous glories are back up, they have the opportunity to jump on him once more. Yeah, I mean, it's a great trade because solar flare has such a low cooldown as an ultimate. To get summoners for it, you buy yourself so many openings and so much time to be able to do it again and hopefully pick up kills or force even more out of the enemy team.
So let's see, how do MYM plan on winning this game? If they decide to push waves, Corki with Trinity falls short range, but there's not a massive amount of threat from ROCCAT with the exception of side lane. So for MYM, they actually have the option to siege towers, these inner towers anyway, on the condition they've got good side lane vision. Because with the disengage from Gragas, with the CC from Leona, and the fact that ROCCAT have to run directly at you, there's no real hard CC, with the exception of LeBlanc, which again has to be directly at you. That means MYM can play that game. So we'll see if they decide to put up those wards and then set their sights on inner turrets. For the time being, they just seem quite fine and dandy to farm it out and stall out to this late game.
Yes, indeed. Vision cleared out. MeetYourMakers just trying to chip away at the ROCCAT ward line. Kori now moving in to the ROCCAT jungle with Oro. Take down a blue buff. Got some waves building on the bottom side. Let's see if they're able to use them effectively.
Yeah, and actually, the more you look at it, not only do MYM have the option to siege with good side lane vision or good flanking vision, there's so little wave clear from ROCCAT. It's risky wave clear from Nukeduck. Yes, Woolite in, you know, the switcheroo rocket, it's a fishbones form, can get some AoE down, but again, it is risky. You run the threat of being hit by a Gragas barrel. So let's see how ROCCAT defend this one. MYM's pushing both middle and bottom lane. And they've not fully committed to a single tower yet. We'll catch a glimpse middle. But again, no wave clear, so relatively smart, relying almost entirely on Woolite. But he does manage to defend against the 2 members of MYM in the middle lane.
Yeah, Nukeduck was enough to scare them away too. I feel like it was a bit greedy to dodge that charm. A bit greedy to try and split. Take 2 towers at once. As 5, they may have been able to grab one of them, but as it stands, both were defended by ROCCAT here. MeetYourMakers, they get the solar flare, but Jankos is over the wall.
On the flip side, the fact that they have pressured 2 lanes, they're denying some CH, they're denying the jungle camps. That was a stolen blue buff. MYM, I agree with you, probably could have got a tower, I think, if they committed to 1 lane fully, but they've denied jungle resources, and they're keeping ROCCAT on the back foot. What worked in ROCCAT's favor, they defended the towers, and they've sort of reset the siege. All of those wards that MYM had placed, not in the jungle. No more vision, and MYM are just going to back off, spend some of their gold, and then look to redo this play. 2,000, in fact, on MrRalleZ Corki, so he can finish off that Bloodthirster.
And then some.
And then some, yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point there. So they were able to push in quite a lot of pressure. ROCCAT, you can see, they're really only controlling about 40 to 30% of the map at a given time. So MeetYourMakers have a lot of wiggle room here to just try and force ROCCAT to dance to their tune yet again.
Yeah. And Jwaow actually finished off the Frozen Heart or Ambience. Makes a lot of sense again against the, actually makes a huge little sense. Auto attack from Irelia, from Jinx, as well as the buff that Nidalee's going to put on anybody. Just that attack speed decrease is going to work wonders. I like seeing Vander going Aegis as well. It's not necessarily a lot of, you know, bursty damage from MYM. As far as like AP mage goes, you know, Kori's a little bit more single target than AoE. But I like it because of all of the lesser AoE. Maokai's got AoE, Gragas has got AoE, even Leona. They're smaller amounts, but it will work in their favor once ROCCAT creep up for these fights. And
yeah, I think so too.
The other thing MYM can also do is they can bait Baron Vision. We're late enough in the game that, and again, with all the catch power, if MYM get good red side jungle wards from ROCCAT down, then MYM can play the bait game. Instead, they're just going to look again for more picks.
Yeah, they got another flash out of Overpow. See what they can do here. Another one from Jankos as well. They're still clearing the wards out. They were spotted on the way up to that, which is why they were able to react to that. But still, getting a pair of summoners for one ultimate. It's a hell of a trade.
Oh, of course it is. But the only thing is, how do MYM convert this to objectives? They do have, obviously, control the jungle again. Top half was MYM's favor. They're moving to the bottom half as Dragon's about to spawn. But they're not pressing the towers yet. MYM might be playing for a Dragon or a Baron victory, which is, of course, a much safer option. And you know what? When your LCS auto-relegation spot is on the line...
Don't want to take too many chances.
No, you don't. So that's probably the safer, smarter option. Play it slow, play it steady, and just let your Uber Mega Ultra tanks tank your way to victory.
Tank their way through the Super Mega Death Rockets, as it were. And then some. 15 seconds on this Drake. MeetYourMakers have mobilized to try and clear the vision out. Once again, it's just 10 seconds away now. Kori still clearing out through the brushes. Let's see how this one unfolds. There's a lot of ROCCAT members here, but they are forced back into their jungle.
And again, you just have to highlight, look at Kori's positioning. If the bottom wave was pushing, Kori could shove it out and push it back towards ROCCAT. If MeetYourMakers decide to start dragging, Kori is flanking. I know it's a relatively simple thing, but it just shows that the communication and the decision-making from MeetYourMakers is on the same page.
It's there like it didn't appear to be for the longest time in this split. And we can harp on about Noxiak and how much his arrival changed, but generally speaking, the whole team has just stepped up several levels here, and it's been showing. They're going to start up this Dragon right now. This would be number 4 for them. ROCCAT, they have to react. This Dragon's going down pretty quickly, though.
They have no engage. How do ROCCAT plan to engage? Nukeduck's going to dash forward and instantly run away. With ROCCAT's team composition, they needed to have gotten ahead early, and they needed to be finding the kills. They need to be proactive with their team composition. And as long as MYM is playing the group of 4 and these sort of flanking Ahri, there's very little that ROCCAT can do unless they punish a MeetYourMakers mistake. So Kori, he has been somewhat caught out. This is going to be an exciting duel.
Overpow's here. There's a teleport coming in. Kori and Nukeduck both, or excuse me, Nukeduck and Overpow both chasing down Kori, but now it's Overpow who's caught out, and he doesn't have any way to get back. Jwaow smacks him in the head for another kill.
Well, what else can MeetYourMakers do? They've taken their 4th Dragon of the game. Secured a kill onto Overpow, and Nukeduck blew his flash to try set that one up. MrRalleZ, Horo, Noxiak on the tower. Looks like they're going to pick this one up. Woolite a little bit late to the party.
Dangerous.
Couple hits away. But luckily, that Static Shiv and Rockets defend the tower on 240 hit points, so a few more auto attacks.
Yep, right now, MrRalleZ is in a pretty strong position, though, because he's got not just the Trinity Force right now, but he's got the Infinity Edge completed. See the Giants members still watching this game. Now in comes Noxiak. Woolite, for a moment, it looked like he was caught, but they were able to force him back yet again.
And remember, every single time MeetYourMakers get an advantage, every single time MeetYourMakers press on their lead, Giants' heart skips a beat. Setting us up for a tiebreaker for 10th position. Pyra will follow immediately after. I'm way off on items. It was a Frozen Heart from Jwaow's Infinity Edge instead of Bloodthirst of MrRalleZ.
Hey, they can still build it whenever they want, but you know what? This is the thing. They have had so much gold, they've had the luxury of being able to pick and choose exactly where they want to go with this one. Now, they want to go bottom lane. Nukeduck and Vander, it's the tower that's in their sights, however, and it's starting to evaporate. Janna Shield On's going to keep it alive for the time being.
Really good chunks, again, from MeetYourMakers. You do see that wave clear from Woolite doing wonders. 2 auto attacks kills the melee minions, but the fact that MeetYourMakers feeling a little more confident, they do secure the tower.
Dodging skill shots, too, I mean.
But again, you see them grouped up. They had the full support of the team, and they take that tower on 2 waves worth of minions. As long as MYM continue to do that, decisive, and get those Trinity Force-empowered auto attacks from MrRalleZ down.
Right, it's not complicated. All they have to do is stick together, play it smart, don't give ROCCAT an opening. They still only got 1 kill. ROCCAT have not been able to pick up anything in these little team skirmishes, or even in the fights. They've been afraid to take them as a result. And MeetYourMakers, you know, they've got themselves 4,000 gold in the lead. And ROCCAT, they have to make moves quickly, but they're running out of time.
The thing that you do have to highlight, though, when you go back to that dive onto Kori by Overpow and Nukeduck, yes, it didn't work out, but it's actually what ROCCAT need to do more of. They have to find somebody alone. It's the only time since First Blood, in fact, that ROCCAT actually did that. You can see vision control in that tri-bush. ROCCAT looking for a target. They want to find somebody alone or split pushing. But MeetYourMakers have simply not presented opportunities.
Yeah, you're right. It really was a bit unlucky that the one didn't quite work out the way it did for them. But taking chances is the way ROCCAT is going to need to get back into this game. MeetYourMakers just aren't giving them very many, however.
No, definitely not. And we're going to go back to Dragon number 5 or the Baron. With the wards that MeetYourMakers are setting up, they're going to have the option to make the play. Force ROCCAT to engage. Force ROCCAT to check a Baron or check a Dragon. With inner turrets going so low, was 240 HP in the middle lane. Top tower, I think it's actually untouched, but we see how quickly they do drop when MeetYourMakers get up to them. ROCCAT are going to be forced to engage, and the fact that their team comp relies on flanking, relies on skirmishes, not 5v5s, is obviously going to just play right into MeetYourMakers' hands. You do see the jump onto Kori, but there's the fight.
Yep, Overpow right in the middle of all the team. There's the Monsoon out. Jankos was stopped for just a moment, but he's going to leap and hop his way away. Nukeduck now moving back in, but then he moves back and moves back again. A couple of jukes there. Meanwhile, a turret goes down in the bottom side. MeetYourMakers, they have the minions to make it happen.
Yeah, minions working in MYM's favor despite the engage from ROCCAT. MeetYourMakers come away relatively unscathed. Horo didn't even pop his ultimate. And look at this vision in favor of MYM. They can peel and catch anyone from ROCCAT at a moment's notice. Wise to back away. They're playing the bait game. They don't really want to focus the objective without having someone from ROCCAT down. And, you know, just to go back to items again, need to see large rod, almost hourglass for Kori. If you look at Jankos, yes, he does have a fully stacked Rod of Ages in a minute's time or shortly. But other than that and the Magus upgrade, just a blasting one. Very expensive, very scaling build. But it might be too late. Nidalee's power and strength in the early game didn't shine through. The lane swap and the tower pushes never gave Jankos the opportunity. Unfortunately, we need to see what he does. He did just finish that Void Staff, literally as we were talking about it. But again, I don't know if it's enough. I feel like it's too late.
Yeah, it's definitely not where they would like it to be right now. And you can see that when they have tried to take fights or catches, they just haven't had quite enough damage. And MYM has been able to clean up in a number of situations. Let's see what Nukeduck can do here. He's going to find Horo, but he himself gets caught for a second. He had a little bit of backup in the form of Vander. The rest of ROCCAT are here now. 19 seconds on this next Dragon. Neither team wants to have anything bad happening to them. MYM are split here. This is a chance for ROCCAT to control this side of the pit. Yeah, so that was the first time MYM were not grouped as the 4-1. That big front line of Jwaow was away. But with the Crab, movement speed shrine, and the fact that MYM have managed to regroup, becomes all sorts of difficult for ROCCAT. Dragon number 5 is sitting, waiting. They've got Woolite. Yes, they have. He's going to throw them the chompers, but it's not going to matter. Horo in the front, taking up all the damage. Jankos and Overpow now going really low as Horo picks up Jankos around the back of it. A double kill over to the Gragas. And that should be another Dragon for MeetYourMakers. This will be number 5. ROCCAT are scrambling here to find an answer.
Yeah, 5 versus 3. We need to see whether or not ROCCAT can pull off something magical. The odds are stacked against them. And they're split up. Woolite, no QSS, no flash. And this is going to be aspect of the Dragon to MeetYourMakers.
37's on the clock, and they caught Woolite on top of it. Nukeduck also extremely low as he dashes out. Kori looks to chase him away, but they found 4 kills and their 5th Dragon on that one. QuickShot. Now they're going for Baron.
With death time is so high, this is relatively safe. The only thing they've got to be careful of is the teleport from Overpow. MrRalleZ is low, and Noxiak is running interference. There's no wards in the pit, so this will be secured. And MeetYourMakers just very, very smart, patient play. Really understanding the team composition, and also punishing ROCCAT's defensive play. ROCCAT had a team comp that needed to do stuff early. It didn't, and MeetYourMakers have outscaled them by this point.
Yeah. Effectively gotten themselves just about everything they can. Aspect of the Dragon, the Baron buff is on. RAL is able to unleash a hail of bullets onto that minion wave to clear it out top. And ROCCAT are running out of options in this game.
I think it's fair to say they are out of options. Again, for MeetYourMakers, they've just got a siege now. They waited, they sieged a little bit 5-8 minutes ago. And with the only inner turret still remaining in the top lane, plus the fact they've got some vision. You can see very clearly MeetYourMakers setting up. Teleport is with Jwaow, so he's shoving in the bottom lane.
Yeah, if ROCCAT can somehow outlast this, which seems very, very unlikely at this point, maybe they can do something once Baron buff and Aspect wears off, but that's such a long shot right now. And MeetYourMakers, they're not letting them leave their base.
Yeah, you've also got to highlight the fact Woolite was caught by Solar Flare, he QSS'd and flashed away. But even that didn't really matter because Jwaow could chase him. There was still a Zenith Blade. Horo, he didn't have the greatest explosive cast. It actually knocked Woolite to safety. But the fact is there is so many sources of lockdown, and the Mega Tanks are not going to get burst through by Nidalee or LeBlanc or Irelia. So as long as Woolite is the focus from MYM, we need to have a relatively easy pickup. No defense from ROCCAT.
And that tower goes down just way too quick. Double cannon mini wave and powered by the Baron buff. Woolite takes a zap shot, but here comes the teleport for Jwaow. They're looking to make a push onto the inhibitors. That inhibitor turret already down to half its health as the rest of MYM meet little resistance from ROCCAT. Inhibitor sure to fall here. There just are no answers for ROCCAT.
We'll have to find out what MYM, how well they can close this one out. With the win, it should set them up for a tiebreaker with Giants. It's a battle for that very, very last auto-relegation spot. Super Minions now pouring through the top lane. And look at this, ROCCAT not even able to defend their base. So difficult.
We said who wants it more here, QuickShot. It seems right now, MeetYourMakers, they want a chance to fight for their LCS lives. Let's see if they can get it here. It's getting down to the wire. Inhibitor number 2 taken down. Giants still looking on, and they're rotating down to the bottom. A clean sweep is what MYM are looking for.
Well, it's going to be the case. Aspect slowly wearing off. Baron about 30, 40 seconds left. Aspect is now gone. Does not matter. Look at this ROCCAT. They don't have a way to engage. That is the problem. They needed to flank. Simply put, MeetYourMakers is knocking on the door with a sledgehammer.
Yep. 2 of the gates are down. Third one's looking close to follow. MYM taking their time. There we go. Now they move in with the mini wave. And it's down. Overpow, last desperate charges. Jankos moves around, but Overpow's going to go down. Kori picks him up. Jankos half his health, trying to dodge away from Kori as the Foxfire's on him. Orbit Deception dodged out. Woolite kiting back, but Horo just absorbing it like it doesn't matter. Jankos is going to fall. Horo with the rampage as Jwaw's in the front. Twisted advance right back into the turret lasers. Nukeduck, he's going to melt. After the fact, Super Mega Death Rocket comes in, but it won't do enough. Blinking health bars are not going to stop MeetYourMakers. They have got this tiebreaker set in their sights, and 41 minutes into the game, knocking on the Nexus. Can Woolite try to push them back? It doesn't look like it. Noxiak's buying some time, and they are going to take it down. MeetYourMakers forcing the 9th place tiebreaker with Giants Gaming.
Slow and steady wins the race. We saw the coach cam towards the end. Yamata Cannon nodding in approval. That victory, MeetYourMakers and Giants in the 23rd hour managed to put wins on the board. Really, actually upsetting the apple cart. They were not the favorites in the matchups. You could argue MYM today against ROCCAT, maybe. But yes, we have at least that guaranteed tiebreaker for 9th. The one thing we also have to highlight, Pyra, with that victory, ROCCAT are now in the promotion tournament. They finish 8th. There is no way for them to make it to the safe spot. Elements are secured. ROCCAT from 4th place in the summer split, potentially making to Worlds. Now in a position they have to re-qualify for the European LCS.
Daunting prospect for them. But for MeetYourMakers, sigh of relief as they still have a chance here.